GM, today we will be talking about the Ethereum Merge. The week of the Ethereum Merge is finally here. We'll talk about what that means for NFTs, if there's any NFTs on our radar, if we just plan on sort of hodling until the merge, and we'll talk about some Solana stuff as well today. So, Tyler, it's been kind of an interesting weekend. The price of Ethereum came back up a little bit, and then people a week ago were way more concerned about the Europe gas crisis that's sort of going on over there. Oh, maybe we already topped on ETH, and then we see it pump again. So it's been kind of crazy. It does seem like a big potentially sell news event. Unsure on that yet. But how's your weekend? What are you thinking right now?
It was good. It was quiet, at least from most of the NFT perspective, but clearly, the merge is in the spotlight. The crypto markets are in the spotlight. I put this in my weekly article. It's a nice macro backdrop right now. I don't think people have permanently flipped bullish or anything, but we're at least in a nice relief rally or some kind of a mini bull run here. The energy crisis in Europe seems to be getting better. The war in Ukraine might be coming to an end here in just a matter of days. So that's huge recent news. And we've got the CPI inflation data coming out this week. People are starting to think that might be positive. So it could be clear skies into the FOMC meeting next week and the potential next rate hike. And we've got equity markets are looking up. It's hard for me to determine if this is just a coupling and crypto is moving up with how equities and stocks are moving up, if this is a pre-merge pump or maybe a little bit mix of both. But it's nice to see some green.
One thing that's somewhat interesting when you word it that way is Bitcoin has been, at least in the short term, moving up faster. And it's sort of the opposite of what we saw last week when we were talking about the ratio Ethereum to Bitcoin coming closer and closer. And now it seems like Bitcoin has jumped back ahead the last day or two. So do you think that it's hard to say, because with Ethereum Merge, I think people are thinking trading wise more with Ethereum right now than Bitcoin. So maybe Bitcoin is moving with the general stock market, and then Ethereum is more people trying to flip it in a sense and trying to play against what's going to happen with the merge.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think some of the ticks I've seen are that this is kind of a catch-up run here from Bitcoin. It's been lagging behind so much, for really the entire past month or so. It's also bullish for ETH in that Bitcoin lagging had been kind of a cap with how far ETH and these alts could really start running with how these markets have traditionally traded. We saw that ratio get as low as 11.7 to 1. I think that's the lowest I saw. It's now back to 12.7. Bitcoin back in the green. And it's interesting ahead of the merge. I don't know that I necessarily expected that to see Bitcoin running out. I would have bet heavier on that, Bitcoin ETH ratio continuing to dip. So I'll be curious over the next 2.5 days, how that ratio holds up. I think that's going to be one of the most watched, ratios or indexes.
Yeah, and another point that I wanted to make on here. So we have the crypto prices on CoinMarketCap up right now, and a lot of it's green. One of the red numbers is Ethereum on the 24-hour. Granted, it's less than 1%, but one of the bigger winners on the week, on the last day or two, has been Solana. And we've talked about Solana NFTs recently, obviously with Utes, but it seems like people are, in general, more bullish on Solana long term. People are now talking about things like the Solana phone that they've talked about could be bullish for the entire blockchain in itself. We saw a little bit of a pump in Sol domain names. I'm not sure. Do they have a specific name to them? I know, like, Bonafide, I believe, is the name of like the brand around it, but I think they're just called Solana domain names. And they saw a little bit of a pump over the weekend as people were moving towards it. But I think one of the best things I heard specifically on this idea of the Solana domain names was about numbers and just with potentially having a Solana phone that people might want to attach to easily remembered, easily memorable and repeatable domains. So that's where people were talking about the numbers. You can have 1 and 2 digit numbers on Solana. So that I think that takes a little away from demand on like 4 digits because like 1 and 2, there's only so many of. They're going to drive sort of that higher price tag. But yeah, right now, I think I saw this. It got up to like 0.6 of an overall floor on the Solana names. A lot of it is already relatively efficient. Was one thing that when I looked, I was like, I don't know if I want to be buying here because things like, was it the 3 digits were around 3 ETH?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it seems like the 3 digits are already trading about what 4 digits were, and there are 2 digits, the 1 digit. So I think that kind of makes sense. What is your thoughts on just Solana in general or the name service here?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, back on just Solana, the token, I think their NFT market activity and spike in volume has started, driving attention to it. The mobile phone, like you mentioned, just the sheer number of users compared to Ethereum. I think part of it is people are starting to compare Solana to Ethereum 4 years ago in the 2017 cycle, and I've seen like the memes, the charts. If you can put the Solana price action chart on top of the 2017 ETH, and it mirrors almost exactly. So the hopium thesis there is that the next run up, for Solana will be similar to what Ethereum had, and I think there's some substance to that. So let's take a look at some of the data. I have some of the Dune Analytics dashboards up. So here's the daily volume just from the past month or so. So clearly we saw a huge spike for the Utes Mint.
That's the first mint date, first spike.
Yeah. And then it's been coming steadily down ever since, but still appears to be somewhat on an overall uptrend. If you were drawing a line from the beginning of the month to the end here. So I think people are pointing to that. I think this is the chart. This is a Magic Eden kind of state of the market for Sol dashboard that I saw. This daily transactions chart here, like this is just going straight up right now. So I think this is one of the more bullish charts that I've seen on the Solana ecosystem. I mean, you can tell just looking at the Magic Eden board in the last 7 days, the volume numbers are reflecting it, right? Like the SNS. So I think ETH has ENS for the names, the domains. I think SNS might be what the term is on
Solana. It's .sol. Not sure if that makes any sort of difference because the other one's .eth, right? But yeah, I guess SNS is what we would call it.
I mean, its volume is up 10,000%. It's crazy, right? The ABC, they had maybe the biggest run besides Utes, right? Surging 200% in their volume. The Kikiverse 1,500%. So some huge numbers over here. And then when you compare and contrast it to ETH NFTs, and I tweeted this out yesterday, but the 90-day volume chart for ETH NFTs is just terrible. Right. Like I'm a pretty bullish guy. I think I come across bullish most of my takes. It's hard to look at this chart and be really excited about the liquidity in ETH NFTs right now. We're hitting lower lows and lower highs, right? As these months of this bear market are stretching on. We had the lowest ETH volume day of the year again on Sunday, 6,000 ETH traded. That was it. I mean, the top set used to eclipse 6,000 ETH on a good day back in our spring bull run. So I don't know. All of that is just declining activity on ETH versus increasing activity on Sol. The Sol phone. We've been talking about mobile. Whoever wins mobile, I think, is going to have an edge. So I don't know. I'm definitely in the camp that's getting a little bit more bullish Sol. Whether that's going to translate to the dots to the SNS, I'm not so sure. Right. I don't know that that's
there's just so many of them.
Yeah, it's a parallel. Like, are they going to get the same value of ETH? I don't know. I'm not currently that the collector base doesn't seem to value them nearly as much, right? So definitely not in the short term. Maybe as a really long term play, it could work out. But I'd say be careful over there.
Yeah, there's just so many that are going to be useless. And when you look at the floor, they do have a decent amount of options for sorting on Magic Eden. There's a lot of emojis that are part of Solana name services. You can have those in the 1 and 2 digits. That's like part of it too. So it's kind of hard to have more unique ones. I guess you could look based off of what ran in the ENS versions and maybe try to find things similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Length is in there. They don't have as many that have been minted, and I don't know. I guess it's hard to say, but I would guess you're also trading much lower numbers on a lot of these things. When I was looking the other day, like I was thinking maybe emoji ones could have something to them because it does seem like it's something more Solana based, but it's hard because you can't really break it out in any way. It's like, why is 5 strawberries? Is that something you want, or the cat face ones? And it's like, well, how do you know the difference on different emojis? So that to me was a little off. If you want to go on Bon, I think it's just Bonfida. You can see which ones they basically get put up on auction. So it's a little different. One thing, if you want to buy into these, that's a little better, I guess, in like long-term buy reasoning than ENS is they don't they're good for life. Like they're not you don't have to re-up it every year with a fee, and that was part of what was baked into the higher end of the ENS stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure. Are you trying to go for any of these? Do you have any sort of strategies you've been looking at?
I think the strategy, if you're going to play the SNS, is a copy trade. Take a look at what's been successful on ETH, right? It's strong words, shorter words typically are performing better. The short numbers, I think the introduction of 2 digits, like 1, 2, and 3 digits, would be as far as I'd play it out on Sol. There's just not enough market demand for this right now to really chase 4 or 5. And like you mentioned earlier, the 3-digit Sol numbers are trading around where the 4-digit ETH are. So we're already an order of magnitude kind of behind in where this market is. But I think if you're looking to trade, I'd look at the best words. Take a look at the words on ENS that have traded well, over the past few months. See if any of those are available. Maybe play around with the auction. That's probably where the most alpha is right now, is in trying to mint the names that haven't come out yet. But I can definitely tell you what's not the play is trying to buy the floor of these random 8-letter domains, right? Like those aren't going to hold any value. So I would just definitely avoid those, and maybe just sit this one out if you're not comfortable, with the SNS, because this one's definitely riskier than ENS. A lot of people think ENS is a bubble as well, especially with the numbers, and it ran hard this past weekend, but it's already kind of coming back down to earth too. So the last ENS run may be kind of coming to an end here.
Yeah, part of it is also like a bet on the coin. We've talked about ENS being more of a bet on ETH long term than NFTs long term. That's one other reason I probably won't get into these right now, because I think it's probably a better bet on the actual coin than these, because say you buy for 20 Solana at $37 Solana. Well, if Solana gets back up to $100, those aren't going to be selling for 20 anymore. Now you're going to, if you try to sell it in the future, you might only sell it for like 5, or whatever. So part of it is you're hedging against holding the coin. And I think if Solana domains become a thing long term, then the coin probably has gone up a good amount again. I mean, we saw it over $200 last year. So kind of what you were saying about if it's following that ETH path, then doesn't that mean Solana would get up to like $400 or $500 eventually? And in that case, like I would just prefer to be holding the token at that point. So it's kind of funny, like, because I bought into Solana ahead of Utes, so I've just been sort of holding Solana a little bit now, and it's nice to see it go up, at least in the short term. But it does feel like pretty bullish compared to a couple months ago when there was like hacks and people were almost, I think, potentially the lowest sentiment they've had on Solana. So we'll see, but yeah, it's definitely something to keep your eye on. Do you know anything? Because I know you were looking into Solana drops. Do you know Archer is asking if you've heard of the NFT Soul Boners? Have something brewing.
Archer, I haven't. And if you've got any good accounts to follow, I've been trying to find, the best like soul influencer soul accounts to track the new upcoming mints. I'm starting to get a better handle on, the top projects in the ecosystem. I'm starting to curate my feed a little bit. I'm like half and half ETH and Soul right now at this point, based on how the algorithm is feeding me content. But I haven't found the new mints yet, so definitely keeping my eyes out for the best ways to track those.
Cool. So that's been pumping, and I guess we could switch this over to ENS side because we saw a big pump on ENS, and like I said, it's been somewhat of a hedge against NFTs. Like when NFTs are down, these can still pump, which is nice to see in a way. People still want to be involved in ENS. We've seen this happen, like 3 or 4 times now. The rush towards numbers, basically. 3 letters also had a little bit of action, but what are you seeing over on the ENS side?
Yeah, I mean, these are some really solid sales. If we look at the biggest sales in the last week, 4 sales over 40 ETH for the 3 digits. The 3 digits continue to really lead the way. All right, if we look at the top sales of the past month, right, 3 of the top 4 are the 3 digits in that 999 club. That floor got all the way up to like 35, I want to say. At peak, it's back to 29.8, so it's down, about 15%, but still holding pretty strong. The 10K club, so the 4 digits made what was probably the biggest run as they were starting to kind of catch up and close that gap a little bit. I want to say I saw those around 3.3 ETH. Maybe they got a touch higher than that at peak over the weekend. They are back down to 2.55. So again, this has historically been a much more volatile set. And then their little brother or sister, the 100K club, the 5-digit numbers, your zip codes, those are back at 0.07. I think they got to like 0.085. So they still haven't breached 0.1. These are definitely the lower cost of entry play. I think that's why they attract, more trades sometimes when this market is pumping, but they also typically will fall faster. So that seems to be what's been dominating the market. We haven't seen a whole lot of premium words or names trade in the last week, so it's been mostly the numbers.
Yeah. Cool. So then we have a bit of news here, which isn't really, I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's not really anything you have to take action on just yet. But Starbucks came out with a little NFT news earlier today where they've talked about it a little bit over the past few months that they wanted to get into NFTs, but they're calling it Starbucks Odyssey. And it's basically a way that you can earn NFTs and unlock different access through Starbucks. And it's kind of like a new version of royalty programs. But the beautiful part to this is a lot of people won't even know that it's NFTs. I mean, because of this coming out and the news around it, it probably will, but they're somewhat trying to make it where you don't have to have a digital wallet. You don't have to know anything about blockchain in order to use it. You can just be a regular Starbucks customer. So what were your thoughts on this Starbucks earlier?
Yeah, this is such interesting timing. So I think this is good and bad for all of us who are early to NFTs. So on the Friday Lucky Trader app launch Twitter Spaces, we were talking about how to go mainstream, we have to remove these technical hurdles of interacting on the blockchain, right? Getting a wallet, getting it funded with ETH, paying gas, all of these things that are absolute roadblocks to mainstream adoption. Hats off to who's ever managing the Starbucks NFT metaverse launch, because they're clearly making the choice to avoid all of those potential roadblocks with how they're launching this. And it seems super smart. So as you mentioned, this is basically going to be tied in with the Starbucks rewards program. Users are going to be logging into their app, and they are going to be able to get these journey stamps. So they're not even using the term NFT. They're completely avoiding it and calling them journey stamps. You'll be able to play these games and go on journeys, and then you'll be able to collect these things. There will be, as I understand it, a marketplace so you can either earn these stamps by going through these quests and adventures, or you can just buy them using credit cards. And some of the more limited edition ones, higher value ones, will give experiences like going to Costa Rica to see, where the coffee beans are grown. And I think there is an artist tie-in to this as well. So there will be some art on the stamps. I think it's brilliant how they're doing it, and this will likely be the highest volume the most customers will be using this NFT than any other NFT by far. They've got 30 million users. The bad news is these people aren't going to know they're interacting with NFTs. This is not going to pump our bags, right? So just remove that from your mindset. But I think it raises the bigger question: how will mainstream NFT adoption impact existing NFT valuations, and will it?
I kind of agree with you there, where it does still have a bit of a Web 2 focus in a way, but I do think this is a lot of people in mainstream think of NFTs as monkey pictures. Like that's what we get whenever we post something on an Instagram or any of these sort of other platforms, where people still just think of NFTs as these pictures that sold for hundreds of thousands last year, selling for hundreds this year, So I think if people see this real world adoption and how it can be used, how the technology can be used, and then, the thing that you use every day, you're already using NFTs. I think for gaining mainstream and big adoption here, that might be the best way to do it at this point, at least starting up. You don't need a crypto wallet. You don't need to have this much of any knowledge of what NFTs are. And that's sort of what won with things like Top Shot in the past. And now even the DraftKings Rainmakers are kind of like that, where they're technically NFTs, but you don't need a crypto wallet. So I think these, as they're starting up this way, where you can pay with credit card, you don't need to know how to use a MetaMask, that keeps people out of getting scammed from it. So it seems like the idea behind it, it's just better how they're going about doing it. So massive brand, world brand as well, and if they're able to do this successfully, get people in the door, because that's really what the start of it is. Like once you're like, I have been using NFTs, this is what they're using it for, then you might learn how to create a crypto wallet and how can I do other things with NFTs. So I think I'm bullish on it in general, and I think they're doing this a good way.
I am too. I guess my devil's advocate question I keep coming back to, and I haven't spent enough time really thinking through this yet, is like, why does this even need to be on a blockchain? Like, I guess, why does this even need to be an NFT? The way they're running it, it seems like it's
Yeah.
going to be a closed ecosystem. To your point, it is a little bit more Web 2. Like, why couldn't this just be a new reward in their existing rewards program app? So I am curious to see, what type of Web 3 touch or blueprint this will have on it. One piece we haven't talked about yet is this is going to be on Polygon.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually even a paragraph in this news article here from Starbucks where they're talking about sustainability. Polygon is a proof of stake blockchain, so much better environmental footprint. Guess what other blockchain is going to be proof of stake here later this week, most likely, fingers crossed. So clearly that is something that matters, right, to these big brands. So maybe this is also bullish for ETH, that once the merge is behind us and it's proven, that proof of stake works and that environmental footprint, the carbon footprint has dropped by 99% or whatever that percentage is, maybe more brands who are potentially on the sidelines, or politicians. Politicians is another one that I've seen, leveraging blockchain technology. But so potentially good for ETH, great for Polygon, right? Got to start paying a little bit more attention to Polygon and how other large brands may start to use their tech here in the coming months.
Yeah. Cool. So then let's get into some other current projects. So Renga has been kind of one of the success plays, I guess, of the past couple of weeks. They revealed they had a slight dip, they're back, but even from this chart itself, like they never crashed per se. You're seeing a ton of the higher end sales have been happening pretty consistently, and you see a big block at the end there. So Lively has been somewhat pumping over this weekend, and are you bullish on the ecosystem for Renga?
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. One, like this, we never see this chart, right? And so for those who may just be listening, we've got the Nerds chart up. Typically, you see a lot of dots essentially near the floor with some kind of scattered above in the mid tier and top end section. This is just a steady series of kind of scatter plots between 0.2 and 1 ETH over the past week and a half. So I guess right there, maybe that was a tell or a signal that folks liked the art and were fine chasing after the mid tiers. Admittedly, I missed this trade. I was in, Ringa, the black boxes when it was around the 0.6. Post reveal, it dumped so hard that I kind of just stopped paying attention to it. It sat, I want to say, got into like 0.27 was, I think, one of the lowest for reveals that I saw. It was 0.35 ETH on Friday, and then just over the weekend and into today, it went on a solid run, jumping almost 100%. It touched 0.6 ETH for the reveals. I want to say the black boxes may have touched 1.25. They're at 1.1 right now, so they're up 10% since we started the show. At 1.18. Yeah, so they're on a real heater here as people are kind of looking at the black boxes. They're equating it to the Clone X files and remembering how much the vials essentially trade at a premium to the revealed Clone X. So some people are buying these to try to get a rare because we've seen some nice rare sales. A lot are just buying to hold them and look for the price appreciation. But I'll say I don't really have my finger on why this is moving now. In general, it seems like people like the art. I feel like people have always liked the art on this set. Maybe it's because the floor is so good and there aren't really that many bad ones. And the mid tiers and top end are really solid. People seem to really like those. So that could be a component. Some big accounts have been touting it. D Farmer primarily. He's been all over Ringa. I think some of the alpha groups are also starting to rally behind this one. So that might very well be some of the drivers for this price action we're seeing. But Man, yeah, I was not prepared. I've been on the sidelines until I missed this run, but we've got 4 sales over 10 ETH now. So that's pretty substantial. So that's another reason why people are chasing these black boxes.
Yeah, it seems like people are. Yeah, Dirty Robot is the artist, right? I think people there's 45,000 followers on Dirty Robot, and I think people are just like the artist as well.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is rallying behind the artist who I'm not sure, but I think this is at least the full set. Might have some one of one arts, but even these high end stuff, I do think they look cool. The animated ones, but it's different than a lot of the other art that we've seen, which
Mm-hmm.
that's always one thing we look for is can you be different? There's so many of these anime projects out there right now, but not many that really look like this one. So I think that's part of it too, where people, as you said, like the art and it's a little refreshing because it is different. Um, but has held up pretty well. Obviously, over the past weekend, had some good volume too. So
And I
we'll be
think,
watching that one.
yeah, Lou, I think a couple other things going for it now. One, there's we didn't really talk about this with the merge yet, but there are no projects dropping this week. There's
Yeah,
a few art projects, but this had open skies, and it has caught the narrative, has caught the market's attention, and it's able to keep that. It could really move here over the rest of this week because again, there's literally nothing else going on. But I think another nice factor, certainly those who were maybe bought those black boxes early, they got underwater as the floor fell from like 1 to to 0.3 post reveal, right? But anyone who's bought over the last week and a half, 2 weeks is now up. So a lot of the products we've had in the last 3 or 4 months, people just took a bath right out of the gate, and I think it really crushes like the community and the vibe. This product's a little bit different, and now people are largely in the green early on, and of course, price action matters for these communities, right? Especially in the early days, and I think that's going to help reinforce, keep people in the ecosystem, and probably build a nice foundation. So maybe this one has a real shot to go on a run here. It's going to definitely be a top product to watch.
yeah. So I think that's probably one of them on my list this week. Utes still obviously watching that, but we aren't expecting them to reveal this week at this point anymore. So yeah, do you want to talk about that a little bit? They've somewhat it's indefinite right now. The
Mm-hmm.
reveal push off indefinitely. Do you think that that's bearish? They dipped down to like 110, bounced back up to over 130. Do you think that this is something it seems like people are generally okay with? I don't think it was a great idea to try to be revealing during the week of the merge anyway. So, what's your thoughts here on Utes?
Yeah, in general, I don't like delays like this, but I think this could end up being a good decision. So a few factors. One, this was going to reveal on Friday, a day and a half after the merge. That felt like a terrible time to reveal. So I'm kind of happy that it's likely beyond the merge at this point in time. Um, Clearly, Frank and the team, from what I'm seeing, for those who are on his spaces and listen to this guy talk, they were burned out, right? So it's better to launch this right and with a working staking site and with good art, with the rarities that they've been talking about, and not messing up, than to launch this too fast. Because this is a big one, right? This has rallied the entire Solana ecosystem. There's a lot of eyes on this. If it doesn't go well, it could greatly impact these products, and probably a lot of others. So there's definitely a lot riding on this. Last week, Frank basically did late night spaces, says we're going to take a few days off Twitter. He still hasn't posted since then, but I guess they did a Discord call on their voice chat last night. Gave a quick update to the community and said they're making good progress on staking. They've been doing some tests on their rarity and the randomness of how that's going to kind of come out. And for those who've been following, the serial number does not matter. So the UT is not tied to the DGOD. So if anyone thought that maybe that was a possibility, you can remove that. And apparently they're throwing around this idea of it, being MySpace 3.3. I'm not really sure why they would rebrand or even throw around MySpace as a a brand here. That was interesting. But it seems like they're doubling down on the community focus. So I think that those are all good updates. Happy Frank and the team are taking a little bit of time to gather internally before they come back to the market. But I mean, I think the price action has been bullish. I thought, we were chatting, I thought we might see an entry at 100 SOL.
I was waiting for
during
that.
this, extended pre-reveal window. And granted, we don't know how much longer this pre-reveal window is going to go. Who knows what happens, 2 hours into the merge. But it's at 133 right now. It was only like 150. It's down 10%. In US dollar terms, it's even because Sol's up 10%, right? So it's up 18% on the week. So in fact, the floor might even be up in US dollar terms. So I think it's holding well. It dipped at 120 and got gobbled up hard there. So there's clearly some buy pressure on this one. I think you're feeling good as a UT holder right now.
Yeah, I agree. I do. Somewhat kicking myself, but also somewhat. I was covering the story at the time. I was actually on news, so I couldn't watch it as intently to try to like time the bottom. I have been selling some of these at tops and bottom ranges at least. Haven't exactly timed them each perfectly, but yeah, I think it basically hit 110 and immediately they all got scooped under 120. So it was like you had to be on at that time in order to buy it. And there's, I think, so 7.5 maybe percent is the fees to sell one of these. So you also have to keep that somewhat in the back of your head, where if you bought this at 110, you have to sell it for at least 120 to really, if you're trying to flip it. So I don't necessarily think it's the best thing to be like trying to buy and flip, except in those cases where people hop on, they're like, oh, I don't know when this is going to reveal. I got to get out of this thing. And then they sell off. So I think that's the times to be trying to buy them, because right now it's been sitting around here. If you buy at 130, then you better hope that there's like an announcement or something coming up, because it's not going to just rush to 150 right away. But based on what I've seen in this collection, is if they come out with a date, and let's say, for example, like I'm not expecting it to be this week, but say today they had come out and said it's going to be Friday, you might see that short burst of buys right after. So something to just keep your eye out. That's what we're doing over at Lucky Trader with the app. You can just get that right to your phone as it happens. Actually, I'm going to bring that up because we're running a giveaway right now. I'm going to pull this back from you. But so we're running this giveaway, and it's for 1,000 USDC for Lucky Trader app users. So download the app. You can connect your Ethereum wallet to it. You don't necessarily have to connect through MetaMask either. Like you can just type in, if you have, like for me with Ludog.eth, you can type that in and have your wallet connected that way. All the instructions are in this. It's our pinned tweet at Lucky Trader HQ. So if you're interested, go over there. We're doing a little giveaway for the app users. But Tyler, is there anything else you're looking for potentially this week that's coming up, or is it more so just thinking of stuff from a macro sense, trying to watch? I put in my little description in my tweet earlier today, I'd like to do a thing really quick with you where merge. Are you buying, selling, or hodling? And this is, you can answer this from a coin perspective or NFTs perspective. I think in this case, I'd lean to more so the coin perspective, but we can give each. So, which of those three are you doing heading into the merge here?
Yeah, I'm holding just because I've been all in on ETH and ETH NFTs for so long. At this point, I think in my preview article, I laid out that I think there's three camps right now. I think those who are just thinking that there's no way the market can price in the reduction in sell pressure from this event, where we're going to see 90% gone on the sell side, and those people are max bullish. I'm in that camp. I think there's one of the more popular trades is sell the news, and those who are pointing to reduction of activity on the Ethereum blockchain. This is the only narrative story that there is left. So it's going to pump on this narrative, but then it's going to, dip macro fears, all of that. And then I think there's a camp that's just on the sidelines. And this is an incredibly, risky technological achievement that they're trying to do here. There's a lot of risk that it could go wrong. And I'd rather those folks who just want to sit and wait and maybe miss 10% price action with a little bit more security. So I don't blame that camp. I'm not sell the news on this one. But what are your thoughts?
I've gone back and forth with this a little bit. Part of me thinks depends on what happens with the coin in the next couple days. Like, it's gone from 1,500 to 1,750. Like, if it gets up to 2,000, I could see that being somewhat of a short-term sell the news event. I think there are going to be people that are selling into it. There are others that probably have already sold and are waiting for it to happen and then buy back in. So I think you're going to get a little of both. I'm, for the most part, just holding. Probably not going to try and buy NFTs this week. Maybe short-term stuff if like some random thing mints and it's hot, but most likely I'm not planning on it. But I think personally I'll be holding if ETH gets up to a crazy, if it just bursts up another $500 or something, I might sell some ETH into that. But I just think there's so many people trading the event. I can't see it going off too much. Even a dump off, like, I think people would buy that dump off pretty quickly. So I'll probably just hold it and watch and see how people react to it in the short term. But yeah, I think that's my stand right now. Probably not buying ahead of it, but most likely holding.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think from a price standpoint, I do think we could see 2,000 plus,
Yeah.
but I think the big coin to watch might very well be Bitcoin. And there's some bullish Bitcoin news out there right now. Fidelity just announced that they're likely going to let institutions, maybe even retail, buy Bitcoin on their platform. So another, big set of adoption news there. That might be the biggest bull narrative for ETH in this event is Bitcoin making a run to 25, 27, 28K and ETH just tailing it, right? Which is definitely on the table. Kaleo's been pounding 28K Bitcoin for weeks now, it seems. And if we get the right macro news here this week, I'd say it seems doable. And in that case, I think ETH runs hard. Now, for NFTs, I'm so conflicted. I think it's almost a lock that this week is going to be bad, at least bad in terms of volume. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of NFT trading volume here this week. It would not surprise me if we see a new yearly low on like Tuesday or Wednesday ahead of the merge. I do think there's a real scenario, though, post-merge event, whether it's successful or not, that folks who have been on the sidelines for a really long time waiting this event could choose to re-enter. So I think that's probably the main bull case for NFTs. I think the other and I called it a sad bull case, is if the merge goes poorly or fails or delays. Let's say ETH drops back to 1,200, 1,000. Well, now NFTs are cheap in ETH terms again, and we could see a repricing rally like we saw in June. So I think those are a few of the scenarios where NFTs could run. There's probably a real scenario too where if ETH jumps fast to 2K plus, right, we see more pain in these floors. So those
Yeah.
are my thoughts. I'm curious for your takes on the NFTs impact too.
Yeah, I am from what I've read, like I don't think at this point it can be delayed. And I also don't know if like it's hard to say what could really go wrong with it, I guess. But I think people just don't know like visually like what's gonna happen. But I feel like it's gonna be somewhat of a non-event. Like people aren't gonna notice that you're on proof of stake now, kind of thing. That's what I'm expecting. But I think like to your point, like if people see if there's a delay on the blockchain within that first hour, people are going to freak out. You know, people are going to overreact if something that potentially has no connection to the merge itself delays you're trying to buy an NFT, or like you try to change gas and it doesn't work. Like there's so many things that I think people are going to overreact because it's just the nature of people in general with this type of stuff. So that'll be cool, like watching that on Thursday. It's gonna be early in the morning Thursday, so that might also help to an extent. Where most people, I'd say, like most of the US aren't really gonna be awake at 5 a.m. on uh,
Well,
Thursday,
so Lou,
but
breaking
are they up
the
for it?
the time has changed.
Oh, okay. It's
So
not 5
now
a.m.
it's estimated for like 11 p.m. Eastern Wednesday night.
Oh, so it keeps coming earlier.
Yes, which I've been surprised as well because I
People
didn't
are just
expect the
flying
hash
through the
rate.
blocks. They're flying through, making transactions, get it earlier.
So yeah, that's surprising me. So now that's a much more interesting time,
Yeah,
right? Like
that's
all the
true.
West Coast will definitely be up. I think most folks really across the U.S. time zones will likely stay up, right, to maybe watch this unfold. And
It's
so
probably gonna come up another hour or two at that rate too. Man.
So probably some champagne being popped, when this thing ticks over to zero. So I think it's going to be a much bigger event now too, like from a countdown perspective than had it been like 4 a.m. when most of us are all sleeping. Right, like now this is going to be a very live time. So we might be able to see some of that chaos, whatever's happening on proof of work, right? And all the coins over there, there's going to be some, crazy action, I'm sure, in those first few hours. So we might even be able to see some of it live.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up because I think this could be a good like sort of last point that we um talk about today. But RA Superstar is talking about GutterCon this weekend in Las Vegas. So Guttercat Gang, they had their DNA2 Gutter Juice drop over the weekend, and it sold out somewhat to our surprise. I think from the initial reaction, we weren't sure if there would be enough demand at zero 0.3 Ethereum to sell out 4,000 of these. But what was sort of your take here? Because I know early on we thought, oh, some people are calling it a cash grab. Not sure where I stand on that per se, but I do think that this drop was expensive for what you were getting. It was 0.1 for the DNA 1, and then you jump it up to 0.3 ETH for DNA 2 months later. And not really sure what DNA 2 gets you that's better than DNA 1 when they came out with this tweet on Friday. So, what was your take on the Gutter Cat gang drop this past weekend?
Yeah, I have to admit, I was flooding this one and calling it a cash grab. I didn't think there was a chance in hell this thing was going to sell out. But watching it sell out, I will say I somewhat flipped my opinion here, and a big driver of that is clearly this Gutter Cat Gang collector base is diehard, and they showed up for this mint. And 0.3 ETH right now to mint one of these. It also didn't you also have to burn? I forget the exact mechanics of this one. You had to have the DNA
The
one, I
one
want to
burned,
say,
yeah.
and you had to have at least one of the clones, the one that you plan to upgrade, or potentially you needed two, right? I think you had to have. I've got like a diagram of this. Yeah, so to do this mechanic, I want to say you needed two. You get apply it to one. One gets sacrificed. I don't know. I'm not conversational on this one, so I need to look into it a bit. But it wasn't just the 0.3. Like there was a bigger financial commitment to this, but that didn't matter. And this thing sold out. And I think you have to be a little bit more bullish on the Gutter Cat Gang and their holders and community after this, because this was a successful drop.
I would say they did come out as a successful drop and somewhat last minute. Like they throughout the week they had these cryptic messages and were hiding what it specifically was, and then they dropped it. I mean, Gutter Cat Gang has one of the best communities of any of these projects, partly due to there's 3,000 of them, the OG cats. So I think that's part of it. People, you see a lot of people have the Gutter Cat PFPs, which I mean, that's a huge part of it. Like people feel like they're in a community. They like the gutter. They have been doing a lot of cool sponsorship partnership stuff in general. So I'd like to see where they go with this. Some people were mad that this wasn't in game token. And I think that was one of the issues is it's like, oh, we thought this wasn't until the token is out and then we'd be able to earn and you can upgrade by the current holders, or if you don't have gang kind of thing, like we've seen with these other projects with Ape, obviously Dust, more recently with Utes. So that was something interesting. But yeah, it happened this weekend. It was kind of cool. What I see that 0.15 ETH is trending on your screen. I wonder what that's specifically pertaining to. Was there a drop that was 0.15 ETH recently? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not recalling anything for 0.15.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just enough different things. It seems like it's all just random
Yeah.
right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
as GutterCon, so GutterCon is this weekend in Vegas. I have to say, I love the IRL events, destination for these communities. I think that's, I mean, we've seen what Ape Fest has done, and clearly that's been a huge rallying point for the Yuga ecosystem. I think if you want to have a top holder base and a top PFP in ETH NFTs, you have to have these meetups. And they need to be big and done right. I was actually just thinking, like, what would a DGods Utes meetup be like here in a few months? That could be a really rowdy one. But I hope that ecosystem pursues this. I don't know if they did one in NFT NYC or not. I think I saw some videos, but I think you got to be excited. I think we've got some comments here. RA Superstar, yeah, he mentioned this one is coming. I don't know if he's attending this one.
Oh yeah, are you all right? I know he's out in California, so it's probably not too far of a trip for him. Would be cool to like. I'm assuming we'll see like pictures from people at the events and stuff, but it'll be interesting if they like announce anything. Moving forward, it's kind of funny that they did this ahead of that. You'd think they would. Oh, we're doing at the event. People are there, so you gotta think they're planning something for the event itself. We'll see, but they have some cool partnerships. They get into the sports world. They've done that. Puma's a big one with them. So nice to see. Yeah. Was there anything else that you're looking for this week, or we covered most of it?
We did. Just real quick. There's an Art Blocks drop on Wednesday. It's
Factory.
It's Floating World Genesis is the name of it's a collab with the Pace Gallery. This is one of Art Block's new partnerships. This is only their second Pace collab. The first Pace collab was Petro National, which minted out around upper ones, like 1.7, 1.8, ran to a 4 ETH floor. Granted, that was more of a bullish Art Blocks market than we are in right now. This one is just, I want to say it's 200 NFTs, a flat 0.2 ETH. So lower supply, fairly attractive entry point. Potential alpha, this is going to be the last Art Blocks mint on the proof of work blockchain.
Yeah, we were talking about that at the curated the other day.
If there could be a bit of a narrative there, like they could hold some, additional value from a collector basis and getting in on that last one. And with 200 supply, this one also typically brings a different market to the mints. I think we definitely saw that with Petro National. So this is going to be one to watch on Wednesday. It's tough to mint and get rid of your ETH just hours before the merge, but if you're going to do it, this one might be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder how much people are going to be factoring things like that in over the next week. I would guess not too much, but yeah, we'll see. In general, I think most people won't put too much to it, but who knows? Some of the bigger collections, like I think CryptoPunks, people are going to talk about that. It could be something worth trading in the short term. That's how I word it. Like if you see people talking it up on Thursday, Friday, then it might be worth it to try to buy into some of those things. But just remember, like the people that are telling you about it, you might want to check the chain and see what they're doing behind the scenes. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, good luck. It seems like this is gonna be our last show on proof of work. We should mint this one. And then next time we'll be on here, it'll be proof of stake. So hopefully we'll have some good news to talk about there. And then besides that, good luck this week. Hopefully if you guys are buying or taking any action to this, maybe you're just taking the week off and it'll be good to take a break, go touch some grass. So we'll see you guys next time.